Good evening. I'm Pat McKay, and I'm the chair of the North Alabama Human Trafficking Task Force. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are very excited to host our Conversations About Human Trafficking webinar tonight. And we have two very knowledgeable speakers with us for tonight's conversation. But first, just a little bit about my background and our task force. I began my journey to learn all I could about human trafficking in 2009. Since that time, I have been organizing efforts to provide education in our area and across Alabama on what human trafficking is, what it is not, and what it looks like. After starting our local task force, I helped organize a state-level task force in 2014. In 2015, the state task force sponsored the very first statewide human trafficking summit meeting to bring together community and state leaders to discuss human trafficking issues in our state, to push for needed legislation to help combat human trafficking, and to provide education about this issue. We started these webinars in 2020, mainly due to COVID-19, since we couldn't meet in person. We quickly realized these webinars are both informative and can reach a large audience. So we will be continuing them in the future as we are getting first-rate speakers who greatly inform our community. And anyone can watch at their leisure through our website, www.stnow.org, after tonight's broadcast. If you're watching tonight via our live stream on Facebook, please let us know if you have any questions. We have members of our task force watching our Facebook feed, and they will forward your questions to me. So again, for tonight's virtual webinar entitled Conversations About Human Trafficking, we have two great speakers who are experts in their field of human trafficking law enforcement. First, I want to introduce investigator Tony Shivers from the Huntsville Police Department. He has over 25 years in law enforcement and works in the Huntsville Police Department Special Victims Unit. He is also a member of the Alabama Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. I also want to introduce our second panelist. Investigator Shivers works closely with Homeland Security, and we are very pleased to have Special Agent Josh McCready from Homeland Security with us tonight as well. He has 23 years experience in law enforcement. Together, they have the type of training and experience in this field to give us an awareness of what both our local police department, along with national support, is doing to help stop human trafficking. It is a pleasure to have both of you gentlemen with us tonight. Thank you for speaking with us on this very important topic.
Thank you, Pat. Good evening.
So let's get started. Tony, I'm going to be asking you questions first, if you don't mind. First question is, Is there anything you would like us to know about what the Huntsville Police Department is doing to help stop human trafficking in this area?
Huntsville Police Department, we work hand in hand with our federal agencies, and our officers have been trained to go around the different areas, the motels and that kind of stuff, and what signs to look for when they are dealing with individuals at these places, whether it's young ladies or young men. And from there, if they feel that something is amiss, and they contact one of us in the Special Victims Unit.
Okay. Is human trafficking a big issue in our area?
That's
for you, Tony. Sorry.
I don't have a whole lot of statistics on it. I know in the last year we've had 3 or 4 cases is all that's been written for human trafficking. And part of that goes with it being identified correctly.
I will add a comment here from myself. I've had several questions when I'm out talking about human trafficking to church groups, etc. Everyone asks, is it more media attention, or is it just there are more cases? So do you have a feel for that? And I know I'm hitting you from left field.
I'm sorry.
Are there more cases, actual cases, or is it just more media attention? What is your idea on that subject?
I believe the media has brought attention to it, and many times people want to help so much that they're misconstruing and saying things that may not be there, and it actually be human trafficking.
I suspect when someone really wants to help somebody on a particular topic and they don't know a lot, they kind of fill in the blanks, and exactly what you just said. Josh, we're very aware of the great educational tools that Homeland Security provides on human trafficking. In fact, our task force uses your videos, data, and materials in our own briefings and training events. Do you want to add anything about Homeland Security's commitment to educate about this issue?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We're here for you guys. We're here for the state police, the local police. Basically, our role is we act as a conduit between the state and local folks to the federal prosecution. A lot of these cases cross state lines. That kind of hamstrings the state and local investigators, whereas we have offices over the entire world, actually. Traditionally, human trafficking has dealt with folks from other countries. They were using, they would hold their immigration documents and such to put them in a position where they had no choice but to be trafficking victims. That's kind of how Homeland Security got into this, and we're just here to help.
Well, it's obvious by your websites. Your Blue campaign is an amazing campaign. Josh, can you please explain how you work with Tony and other local groups to support local efforts?
So again, I mean, we're in a collaborative setting. We work well with Huntsville Police Department, Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, and several other local police departments. Again, we act as a conduit to the U.S. Attorney. Most of these cases, if they reach a certain threshold, they will be prosecuted federally. And generally speaking, federal sentencing guidelines are more strict and stringent than the state statute. So we're allowed, generally we'll get people, more time in prison for these types of crimes.
And that's a good thing, getting them off the street.
Yes.
So the next question is going to be asked of both of you. The first one I'm going to ask of Tony. Who do you work with from state and national organizations to curb human trafficking, and how important is it to work together?
Work with Aaliyah and with Homeland Security, FBI, and the county sheriff's department is who we work with. And it brings everybody together so that we all know what the other's doing and so that we can strengthen each other's weaknesses and level the playing field to help each and every one of us.
And get the bad guys off the streets. I love it.
That's the end goal. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. And Josh, do you have comments on this one?
No, I mean, same thing.
Same
It's a
thing.
collaborative. We're just trying to get the bad guys off the street.
Good deal. We want you to do that.
We've got a good working partnership with us. Homeland Security and us work very well together. We work day in, day out together.
Great.
So,
That's what I want to hear. And so do our viewers. How much of human trafficking in our area is transitory, meaning they're just moving the victims through our area to another city, another state, or is it just homegrown human trafficking? Josh, I'll ask you that first.
Well, as far as the transitory goes, it's really hard to pin down numbers on that because generally we don't even know it. A lot of the cases that we work, they start out as child exploitation, but the reality is when you involve money and when you involve other factors, it becomes human trafficking. So I would say the majority of the cases that we work are in fact homegrown. I hate to say that, the victims are grown, but the victims are from the North Alabama area, generally speaking, in my experience.
Okay. Tony, you want to add anything to that?
that pretty much summed it up with.
Okay.
I will tell you just real quick, this case has been adjudicated, but there was a case involving a young lady. It started out as a child exploitation case, but in fact, she was being taken to Mexico against her will and was trafficked. So it does involve the whole spectrum. She in fact was undocumented in the United States, and that probably had something to do with her being singled out as a victim.
Well, then, are there any unique characteristics related to human trafficking here in Alabama? How is it different, for example, from other states, other areas?
I would say I would assume it's similar, in that they're preying on people who don't have a good family system, who don't have a good support system, things along those lines. They generally are easier victims. And they don't have people asking what's wrong, or people that will miss them, so to speak, if they go for a week or two.
Tony, do you have anything to add to that?
No, ma'am. Other than they generally pick out the individuals that have low self-esteem about themselves, make them feel better about them, and work at that level. Like he was saying, they don't have the support at home and the friend support to combat this or to build up their self-esteem. So they look for the ones that are basically by themselves, loners and such.
Okay, I have a question from Facebook. Let me read it to you. Do your collaborative efforts include services from NGOs, non-government organizations, such as crisis intervention services, child advocacy services, and/or social services? It's a long one.
Yeah, so I actually, myself and Investigator Shivers, our office is at the National Child Advocacy Center. So absolutely, we use all of the NGO services that are available to the victims, to us, to anybody. They are an invaluable asset. Without them, we would be something that would take a day to get done with all of those assets could take weeks, if not months, to get done. So absolutely, it's invaluable, and we use them all the time.
And the Child Advocacy Center, as Special Agent McCready was saying, we use them and we work with each other throughout the states. We've had victims here that are from, I had them from North Dakota, had them from California, had them all over. We're in there, every state in the union, somebody's worked it here. I had one from Hawaii that was here, that she was from Hawaii. And we work together. And if I have a victim that's up there, we can all work together. Like they move from here and go up there. Then we can reach out to the Child Advocacy Center up there, and they are more than happy to help and facilitate anything we need.
The advocacy centers are amazing. We have them all over the US, and I believe they're starting some internationally now as well. Special Agent McCready, you mentioned being at the NCAC. That is a multidisciplinary team, if I'm not mistaken. Can you give us a little insight on what that really means?
So again, you have several different agencies working under the same roof. The purpose behind that is number one, it's information sharing. Investigator Shivers has access to information that I don't necessarily have access to, and vice versa. Everybody brings something different to the table. Investigator Shivers can have, support for the cases we're working. He can get stuff done. A lot of times in these cases, because of the nature, a federal case generally takes longer to prosecute than what would be a state case. So in a lot of cases where the federal authorities are involved, the state and the local police departments will put charges on them and give the federal system time to charge and indict the person and then get them arrested. So that's kind of what the multidisciplinary team brings to the fight, so to speak.
Is it just law enforcement, police, or is
No,
it other organizations?
Yeah, we have forensic interviewers. I mean, all of the NGO services are also part of the multidisciplinary team.
We've got in the multidisciplinary team, we have Huntsville Police, Madison Police. We have Madison County Sheriff's Office. We've got the DA's office. We've got the Child Advocacy Center. We've got DHR, Department of Human Resources. We've got the forensic nurses with crisis services. Have I left anybody out, Josh?
Yeah, Homeland Security.
Well, you're here.
Uh-oh, you're in trouble now, Tony. Our district attorney representatives in there too. Did you mention that?
Yes, ma'am. The DA's office. Yes, ma'am.
That's what I thought the DA's office was. That's
And
amazing. That's amazing.
With the DA's office, ma'am, we also have 3 that are in our building with us.
That's what I
that
thought.
we can go to and talk to, and they're right there to help us.
So if something happens, you have a case or you have an issue, you guys can pretty much solve that with cross information
Absolutely.
and very quickly, which I think that is one of the main reasons multidisciplinary teams were defined in the first place, correct?
Well, and another thing we can, the Department of Homeland Security, another thing we can bring, if Investigator Shivers comes to me and says, I have a victim in Maryland that I need to get interviewed right now, I can call my office in Maryland and cut through the red tape and get them directly to the scene to interview that child. Whereas sometimes the other process takes a little longer.
Sure. Well, that sounds great. I've long been a fan of the multidisciplinary teams. I think not every part of the state, but several parts of the state needs to have those throughout. It certainly seems to help get things done. So I have another question. What sorts of things do members of the public see and pass along that are not helpful?
I don't think there's such a thing, to be honest with you, that is not helpful. Not everything comes to the point of a criminal investigation.
Mhm.
However, there are things that we've received that initially there was not a lot of merit to, that someone could have said didn't need to be reported, but later turned out to be something. So I would not discourage anyone from sharing anything that they feel is worthy of law enforcement.
When we go out and talk to organizations about human trafficking, we end it with a slide that says, do not attempt to rescue an individual who is being trafficked. And it's emphasized over and over in our talk because we don't want people getting involved in the victim and you who are the bystander, if you will, and the trafficker getting into a fight, a struggle, or any other kind of dangerous situation. We tell them to talk to local police. We also talk to them about talk to Homeland Security, and I put those numbers up there on that screen. FBI, the helpline, the national hotline, all of those numbers are very, very important for people to be able to report. Is that something that you agree with, or?
Sure,
or
no,
not?
absolutely.
Yes.
I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, the best thing you can do in a situation like that is be a great witness. Try and keep an eye on them until the police can get there. I mean,
Right.
number one, you could put yourself in danger.
Yes.
Number two, you could possibly, you know, there could be a situation that the criminal case could get a little wonky if things go a certain way. So I would absolutely ask that they contact 911 as soon as possible and just try and keep an eye on everything.
Observe.
Because everything that looks like trafficking is not necessarily trafficking.
Exactly. And I know that, and that's where we were getting. Yes, Tony, you had a comment.
Yes, I was just going to say, make sure you observe and take note of what they're wearing, so you can give good descriptions. You see their vehicle, take a tag number, but do not put yourself in harm's way to do such.
Good advice. Good advice. What laws, if any, do you need and don't have? Tony, I'll give that one to you since you're an Alabama person.
I mean, we've got human trafficking laws in the first and second degree. We've got laws that pretty much encompass it. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that would, what more laws we need. Because we've got something that covers whether they're used in the sex trade or whether they're used in labor and human trafficking that we can rely on.
What can individuals do to help you do your job? Both of you. Josh, I'll let you start. If
Be a
you don't
good
mind.
witness. I mean, it's crucial to be a good witness, to, like, as Tony said, if you have a notebook, take notes. If not, text a friend, text pertinent information so you have a record of it. Because a lot of times in these situations, you will forget a lot of important information. And it's not abnormal, unfortunately, in this generation for people to be on their phone 24/7. So it's not going to stick out to the trafficker. They have no clue who you're texting or what you're texting. That's the best. And then, of course, if you see something, say something. Report whatever you feel is. And again, if there's nothing to it, there's nothing to it. No harm, no foul. But if you report it, that's how we get involved.
I like the see something, say something slogan. I think it really tells people that, you know, there are things out there, there's signs out there that you should be aware of and pay attention to, but don't just ignore them. Tell somebody in authority that can actually investigate it and make sure it's nothing. Hopefully it turns out to be nothing. I have another question. I can't read. Have our local 911 personnel been trained on how to respond to a call from someone reporting a potential trafficking situation?
Yes, ma'am, they have. They give a training in the academy and there's follow-up training throughout. And we try to go a few times a year to the roll calls, and both on the ICAC stuff and the human trafficking aspects, and try to give refreshers.
Great. And how often do you do the refreshers?
A couple times a year
Couple
is what
times
we
a
try
year.
to do. We've got 3 precincts and 3 shifts per, so we've got to work it into it.
Um, the Facebook folks are just prolific tonight. So give me a second here. I think the biggest mistake is waiting too long to get back with the victim or providing resources on the spot. Do you agree?
I mean, I know from mine and Tony's experience, the victim, I mean, Homeland Security has a victim-centered approach, not only in human trafficking, not only in child exploitation, but all crimes we work, we have a victim-centered approach. I mean, I'm sure there have been times where, you know, certain things have fallen through the crack, but I would not agree that that is a widespread problem, at least from our perspective. Now, again, I can't speak to everyone because I know every agency is different.
Sure.
But I know that Tony and I, the victims are the reason we do this job. So that is our primary concern.
Tony, you want to add anything to that?
I've got to agree with Josh here that we get it, and as soon as we get it, whether it's Homeland or HPD, then we start working on it and get with the victim. I don't believe there's a lapse of time from the time we get it to the time we start helping the victim. And then we've got crisis services in our building also that we deal with. So if I get a case, then I go down and talk to Ms. Pyle down there at Crisis Services, and she gets the same reports we do, so that she has people working with her and she can start reaching out to them to what resources are there for them.
I would like to follow up and
Sure.
for that individual who feels that way, obviously somebody failed you, and that's something we need to work on better. If you feel like it happened, it happened. You know, I would like some more specifics because, you know, we are happy to train police departments if they're interested in response and the victim-centered approach. If a police department is operating that way, that is the wrong way to operate. So, you know, I'm happy to, if there's more information, you know, to try and rectify that, because that should not be happening.
And if it happened here, they can always reach out to me and we can rectify it.
Good. So I know Huntsville has a large homeless population and it grows a lot every week, every month. Is that an area that is prolific with human trafficking potential? Or is that just one of those, you know, folklore things? I know they're vulnerable. They're a vulnerable population.
They are vulnerable. I think it's important. I think it's important for everyone to understand that every sex worker, and this is, you know, somewhat graphic, but every sex worker is not a victim of trafficking.
Right.
Some people have made a conscious decision that's, you know, as some would say, it's the oldest profession in the world. Some have made a conscious decision to do that. And I realize that there are, you know, factors that lead them to that. However, if force, fraud, or coercion are not in play, then it is not trafficking under the federal statute. I just think that's important to note.
Sure. Very good. Is there something that our task force can do? Tony, I'm going to ask you this directly. Is there something we can do to help you do what you do related to human trafficking?
Your task force has been remarkable. Every time I've asked you for anything or need to know anything, that you've stepped up and helped.
We try. But is there more that we can do is the point.
I'm sure there is if I think about it.
Okay. Well, please think about it, because we're not just here for a nice meeting every month. We want to do what's right for our victims, to spread the word about human trafficking, educate the public, etc. So as you think of those things that we could be doing, please pass them on. Now, there are things that we may not be able to do for whatever reason, but we'll admit it and do what we can. And I'll ask the same question with you, Josh. What is it that this task force can do for you, or the state task force? I chair it as well.
I mean, I think getting the word out there is great. I have a Actually, myself and Investigator Shivers have a great relationship with the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, who handles all these cases. She is in the fight with us. It's a group effort to include the district attorney's office for all the state cases. You know, I mean, we work off of leads, so that's the best way that, you know, that we benefit is the leads that we can get.
Absolutely. I know the middle of June, there was a prosecution of a man who had 10 counts of human trafficking violations on his record, if you will, and he was prosecuted in all 10. He was charged with all 10, and he was prosecuted for all 10 and convicted. Do either of you have any information that you want to share about that, since he has gone through trial? It's the largest one in Alabama thus far, is what I'm being told.
Yes, I mean, that's not my case, so I won't speak on anything that I'm not involved in.
Okay.
That's not mine, neither.
Yours either. Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure that the viewers knew that the largest human trafficking case has been closed. The man has been convicted on these 10 charges that probably he will never see the light of day. There was, I think, only one minor involved, but the rest were, you know, of legal age, but still, it's still heinous, and he needs to go away. So another question: what differences did you see in all of this during the worst part of COVID, the pandemic?
From my experience, I saw more child exploitation than I did human trafficking.
Really?
I think, you know, a lot of the child exploitation that we work deals with the internet. And when people are working from home, they have, you know, a lot of free time. And, you know, unfortunately, people that have those desires and urges, when they have free time, that's kind of when they act on them. So that I did see an uptick, just from my experience, in those types of crimes. I can't say specifically human trafficking, but they're very close again.
Sure.
You know, if there's money involved in a child exploitation, that's a commercial sex act, and that rises to the level of human trafficking. With a person under 18, you do not have to show force, fraud, or coercion. You just have to have a commercial sex act. I will say that.
Sure. Tony, you want to add anything to that?
I just agree with Special Agent McCready here that when everything was at the worst of the pandemic, people weren't out. So we weren't getting called, seeing a bunch of people at the hotels and doing all that. Everybody stayed close to home and hearth there.
Right.
And so the uptick on the sexual exploitation went through the roof on the ICAC, the cyber tips. So
Josh, you mentioned the internet, and I know that the internet crimes against children is a pretty big force in this country, trying to end those kinds of issues. What can we tell parents about internet use and kids? I mean, it's the age-old problem. Everybody that has a kid or a grandchild has the same problem, and they were sent home with iPads or computers when COVID started. What, right, Josh, would you tell a parent or a grandparent?
I mean, the best advice I can give them is you have to monitor everything that occurs on that device. I know it's hard. That the unfortunate thing is the children know more than the parents, and 99% of I mean, this is unfortunate, but it's absolutely true. And I would say 100% of the time, if they're living with a grandparent or a parent who's a little older, they know more about the phone than they do. So there are ways to hide apps. There are ways to hide all kind of things on the phone that an uninformed parent has no clue about. So the best advice I can give them is to monitor the traffic and try to put, you know, only let them use it in a centralized location, not in their room with a closed door. I can honestly say in 23 years, I don't think there's been a good thing that's come of somebody with a phone or a computer in their bedroom.
Tony, you want to add anything to that?
Just have to agree with him that know what your children are doing, know what they're looking at, monitor them, and be involved in their life. I've gone out to speak with some of the schools and some of the parents, and we can do that anytime you want on this internet safety. Be more than happy to do that if anybody wants to reach out and ask us to come talk to their crew.
We also have one of our board members who does that occasionally, and it's something that really every school needs to have access to. The State Department of Education rolled out training for K through 12, age appropriate, last August. So it's been out for a year now. And it's general human trafficking information so that the kids know what things are happening around them and what to do. But it's also internet savvy kind of information so that they know what's happening and that they can't just get caught up in an app that's really not very conducive for positive things. I do have another question. One of our viewers is telling of her 16-year-old daughter who was snared by as a bait girl at Pinson Valley High School. Have we had any cases like that in northern Alabama? And Pinson Valley is in Birmingham area, if you are not aware.
I mean, I'm not aware of any. I mean, I know there have been some high-profile kidnappings. I wasn't involved in the. I don't know if there was a sexual motive behind them. Which, if there was, then that could be a trafficking situation. And forced labor, that's another thing that deals with human trafficking. I realize generally we talk about the sexual aspect, but forced labor is also human trafficking under the federal statute. Again, it involves force, fraud, or coercion, but if somebody is made to work without the proper pay, then they could be a trafficking victim as well. But to answer Jasmine's question, I don't believe there has been that I'm aware of.
Tony, you want to add?
I'm not aware of any.
Not aware.
In Huntsville. No,
and I actually, I'm reading her comments. I would like to be the first to say I'm sorry that her daughter did not get the services that she desired and needed, and somebody failed her and
Absolutely.
her daughter. And I would personally like to apologize to her. I was not involved in that case, but that should not happen.
That's very nice.
I'd like to apologize to her too, because that's not how we operate here. I can't see the stuff. I was just saying, I can't see any.
We do have something in this state that I don't know if it's in every state, but we have familial trafficking. Is that something you're seeing more of?
Yes. I would say that is the one that is the most common.
Just in Alabama, or
well,
in most states?
I was in Arizona for 6 years before I came to Alabama with Homeland Security. That is the most common one I see in North Alabama.
Okay. And for those of you viewing who may not know what familial trafficking is, it is when a family member is trafficking their own child for rent money, for drug money, for various and sundry money needs, which is pretty sad. So it is very common, it sounds.
I'm not going to say it's very common. I don't want to get everyone alarmed. I'm not going to say it's very common, but I will say majority of the cases that I work, there are smaller in number than Investigator Shivers, but familial trafficking is the biggest. Right.
Okay. Too bad it's real is the bottom line. Let's talk about labor trafficking for just a moment. I know that neither of you are with the Labor Department, but I know that you probably at some point have gotten involved with or have known about a labor trafficking case in North Alabama in particular. Josh, do you have anything that you could share there?
I mean, generally, what we see in North Alabama, it's at the chicken plants, things along those lines. They'll have generally and I hate to speak in generalities, but
Sure.
you know, a lot of times it's undocumented workers that are under the age that they should be working in these factories. I mean, I think it's kind of common knowledge that, you know, the undocumented population works in the farming industry and in the, you know, meat, chicken processing industry. That's kind of what we experience here in North Alabama. And I would like to say there was a comment on Facebook about, is there anything we could do for Jasmine? Absolutely. I mean, if she can reach out to you guys, you can reach out to us. You know, we can put her in touch with the folks at the advocacy center. If she needs help, we can put her in touch with people that can help her.
Good. We will pass that on. Let's see. There is another question. Well, there's not another question, but there is, in my mind, labor trafficking, which to me, Alabama doesn't know a lot about. Alabama in general, because we don't see a lot of those cases. But there was an article on the internet recently talking about the Hyundai plant down in Montgomery that was found to have illegal folks working there, underage, etc. So do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything about that case specific, but I know that there have been businesses in North Alabama that have done the same thing.
Mm.
I mean, it is a problem, and it is happening.
We just don't hear a lot about labor trafficking in the state. If there's a human trafficking case, it's usually sexual in nature, like you mentioned, Josh. Here's another question. There was a large bust a few years ago in Madison involving massage parlors. Are there more cases being worked on in our community, in our area, involving illicit massage parlors?
I won't speak to that.
Okay. Tony, do you want to speak to that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I can imagine why, but I won't even say that. We are at 7:40 and we're not getting any more questions. So I guess what I want to do is just go ahead and do our wrap up. Well, before I do that, do either of you have anything else you want to share with us tonight?
I just want to say, I mean, we're here for you guys. That's why we do this, for the victims. You know, we love putting bad guys in jail. We don't care if it hits the news or not. We just like putting bad guys away for a long time. So let us know. We're here to help.
That's exactly what we want you doing, is getting the bad guys off the street. Tony, one last comment?
Yes, ma'am. I just have to agree. And I was talking to some of our counterparts out at the airport last night, and I wasn't aware of it, but a week or so ago, they had a individual and a young lady going through, and something seemed kind of off and hinky about it. So they split them up, and come to find out, he was trafficking her.
Oh.
And the FBI the airport called the FBI liaison, and they came out.
And they saved her.
Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic.
I wasn't aware of it until yesterday, because the public safety out there is their own entity. And I was talking to some of my cohorts out there, and they told me about it.
So all of that TSA stuff that they do to you when you go through the line to get on an airplane is really working. And that's good. I don't begrudge that, because I know it's a safety thing, but if it can save one person, and obviously it did, then I'm all for it. Well, I want to say thank you, Tony. Thank you, Josh, for being here tonight. You've both given us some really good information and a lot to think about. We'll be hosting another conversation about human trafficking next quarter. We hope to focus on having conversation on policing across Alabama and what steps other community police forces have been taking with training and procedures to help stop human trafficking in their areas. I also want to thank the task force board members who worked behind the scenes to make this webinar happen. Thank you guys. You're always there to help us. And to all of you out there who's joined us through Facebook, thank you so much for being with us tonight. If you would like, please go to our website at www.stnow.org and learn more about human trafficking, upcoming awareness events, educational activities, and future projects. If your church, school, civic group, or business would like to learn more about human trafficking, we would be very happy to provide training free of charge to your group. Thank you, everyone, and good night, and please be safe.